Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Recruit Military Live, a continuing series of live broadcasts covering all things military transition, veteran employment, mil-spouse employment, and much more. My name is Lucas Connolly, retired U.S. Army officer and former TAP program manager, here to share with you the ins and outs of navigating the turbulent waters of civilian employment. If you're in search of meaningful employment, well, you're in the right place. Visit rmvets.com/live to learn more. Okay, let's roll right into the show, folks. Are you firing off resume after resume, getting nowhere fast, shotgun approach, carpet bombing, whatever you want to call it, and you're just not getting any responses? The phone's not ringing, the email's not blowing up. Well, you're in the right place, folks, so don't touch that mouse. Today's topic is 5 simple steps to a targeted resume, to how to make sure that your resume is targeted and tailored for the employer you're applying to and the role that you are seeking. Our guest today is a fighting soldier from the sky. A tip of the hat to Barry Sadler, one of the fearless men who jump and die. He's a veteran of not only the U.S. Army Field Artillery, the one true king of battle, and the elite U.S. Army Special Forces with service in Afghanistan. He is currently a client success manager for our very own Recruit Military, helping to deliver military talent to companies that value military talent. In that role, he has had the honor, or perhaps the dishonor, of reviewing hundreds, if not thousands, of resumes. He's seen good ones, he's seen bad ones, and he's seen ones that were just plain ugly. He's here to share with you what he's learned along the way. Please join me in welcoming, you get 2 Lucases for the price of one today, Lucas Waniewski. Lucas, welcome to the show.
What's going on, Lucas? How are you today? I appreciate you having me on today, man.
And it's great to have you. Almost feel like the episode of Three Stooges. Doctor Lucas, good morning.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely great reference, by the way.
All right, guys. Now that all you folks out there in internet land, now you know who we are. Let's find out who you are. Hit us up in the chat window. Let us know who you are, who you're with, who you served with. Are you a veteran, retiree, civilian, National Guard, mil-spouse, some other status I haven't thought of? Let us know where you're at and what we can do for you. And if you got questions, comments, issues, or concern, jump into that chat and hit us up, and time allowing, we will address them. All right, Lucas, look, there's no doubt, and I've heard it a million times. I've applied to 200 jobs. I've sent out 1,000 resumes. All day, every day, I must have sent my resume out 50 times a day, and it doesn't work. And I look at that person, I go, you're right. It doesn't work, because if you're aiming at everything, you're probably hitting nothing. Am I wrong?
No, absolutely. I think a lot of us get comfortable with what we create as what we see as like a one size fits all kind of template. And it's something that encompasses what we think are the best things that we can really apply or contribute to a company. But it's not, for someone on this side of the house where I'm as you mentioned, reviewing countless resumes on a regular basis. I'm sure many of our audience out there have read some of the articles. We don't spend a lot of time going through these resumes. Out of all the calls that I'm making and all the resumes that I'm looking at, I'm trying to identify those key buzzwords. And when we're looking at these resumes and I see something that seems pretty cookie cutter, it's like, okay, well, let me call this individual up and see if I can get a little more clarity on it and help them out. And that's what we do here. But absolutely. I think that's something people unintentionally do is shortchange themselves and what they bring to the table by trying to apply that one size fits all when they really need to be focusing more on a square peg for a square hole, round peg for round hole kind of approach.
Absolutely. Because nobody out there is hiring. And a lot of folks say, well, I'm a jack of all trades. I can learn how to do anything. Nobody's hiring for that. They're hiring for a specific role to get a specific output. They need you to come in and generate results. So we need a targeted resume, and we've got 5 steps to get after it. All right. Step number 1, take us out of the gate strong, Lucas. Gather the tools. What do you got?
All right. Absolutely. So gathering the tools, you want to create a master list, maybe not master list, but a master resume, and think of it as pardon the analogy here, the metaphor, but having an artist palette. You're Bob Ross, and on that palette, you've got everything you're going to need, everything you've accomplished, everything that you bring to the table to make this masterpiece of, the river flowing by the mountain and the trees and all that stuff. So get everything out there that you can recall that you would be value added. That's a certification, that's an experience, something that, you've been passionate about and made accomplishments along the way there. and just get that out there, on could end up being a 3 to 5 page document, but something where you can reference that palette of everything and really focus that. And we'll get into this more a little later on in this discussion, but just having that open list to be able to work off of, instead of something that probably realistically you and I have done when we're departing the military and having to get our own resumes together. You're looking at a format that maybe you got from Microsoft Word or a buddy, and it's like, okay, how do I piece in what fits here? Just don't worry about that right off the bat. Just get everything out in front of you. Just like,
Could be like a full equipment loadout on a Bradley, right? You got 25 Mike Mikes, we got 7.62, we got 50 cal. We got some tow missiles over here. We got the BII. We got 11 soldiers in the back. Oh, 5 more guys just showed up. Make that 16 soldiers in the back.
that's right? Perfect. Yeah, exactly.
Get all your gear, everything
Get
you
it
got
all out there. That's exactly it. Yep. So yeah, once you've got all that and you're looking at what you're working with, then that picture comes a little more clear for you, and you're able to be a little more precise or a little more surgical with how you're trying to craft that document for job A, B, and C, instead of just hoping that shotgun blast of what seems to make sense for you is going to work. And then, pending any questions that come through with this, I just want to go into something that I think is very important. And, I'm very likely preaching to the choir for everybody that's joining in on this, but gather your intelligence, right? With what we do at Recruit Military, there's been several candidates that I've worked with who have had the opportunity to be involved in back-to-back interviews on, throughout the week. And that's great. And that's what we want to, provide our candidates. But they kind of, it's a self-inflicted muddying of the waters. They just know, hey, I've got an operations manager gig that I'm interviewing for on Monday. I've got a project manager gig that I'm interviewing for on Tuesday. And very recently I had an individual who crossed those wires. He mixed it up, and it kind of went south for him. So very important. It's the year of our Lord 2023. We have access to limitless information. Each one of these companies that you're pursuing is certainly going to have a website. They're realistically probably going to have a promotional video on YouTube. But first and foremost, gather that job description, see what the company's all about,
and read it, for God's sakes.
Read it. Yes, internalize it. Don't, I know I talked about skimming for buzzwords. This is not the time to be skimming for buzzwords within this job. Really understand what it is that they're looking for. Take in all these different resources to get the best picture of what it is that they're looking for. And that's going to help you formulate how you can bring your own experience to be able to contribute to that company as well. So just, something that I think is unfortunately overlooked, but is one of the most important things, in addition to conveying how you're going to be value added to that company. Read the job description, internalize it, see how that fits with what you have. And maybe that's something that you can, maybe not ideally, but self-select out. I'm certainly not going to, put my name in the hat for something that, my experience is maybe like at a 25% for. But again, we're going to elaborate on that some more later. But anyway.
Yeah. Like Sun Tzu said, know yourself and know your enemy, is victory is guaranteed, right? Now, you don't want to consider the employer to be the enemy, right? Potentially there's your ally, there's your future employer, but you want to know, hey, you better know what's in the job description. I better understand what that company's mission statement is. Better know what their values are, maybe what they did quarterly for earnings last year. Have they got new facilities or rolling out a new product line? You can be guaranteed the people on the other side of that interview table are going to know that information. And if you're armed with that information, you just can't help but be a better candidate. So great. Gather the intel. All right, good stuff. How about what do you do after to get a little intelligence? How about a little recon action? What should we be looking for? What's our PIRs?
Absolutely. So conducting recon is another great asset that we, LinkedIn is a phenomenal resource for that. I know when I was in the process of getting out of the military a couple of years ago, as I was pursuing some of these different companies or looking into some of these different roles, someone suggested this to me, and it was something at the time that it makes a lot of sense now, because you and I live and breathe this. But that was, LinkedIn is a very robust network, and by design is to build your network, right? And aside from maybe some of the more unique posts that are, some humble brags, I was able to reach out for job A and find some individuals that work there and just have a anxiety-free conversation. Hey man, can I take a couple minutes of your time and learn a little bit more about what you've been doing in this role? I'm really interested in this particular space, or I'm getting out of the military. Just have that opportunity to explain a little bit about yourself, and now you're having a threat-free discussion with somebody who's not potentially holding your career in the palm of their hands with an upcoming interview. And you can really get into some of the nitty gritty as far as what this job entails, maybe something that the company is not going to directly address in their job description, or maybe something that is a subcategory of what you're going to be doing within that role. You're going to have the opportunity to really get a better understanding of that before you lean all in for this. So that recon that you conduct is absolutely critical, and it's something that I think, for me, despite all the things that you and I have done respectively in the military, um, there are really very few things that I think create the buildup of anxiety and nervousness than building a resume or having an interview with somebody. I mean, you and I have seen some wild stuff, but there's just really nothing that compares to being like, hey, I want to work with you guys and here's what I can do. And you really minimize a lot of that internal friction within this whole process. And that is all just to kind of go back a little bit with that gathering of your intelligence. Consider that like your first rehearsal. None of us have ever briefed or conducted an operation with just half-cocked idea of what's going on. You're really combing through so you have a good idea. You're laying everything out, and then now you're conducting your recon to get the full picture, and then now you're going to be able to take a lot of the weight off yourself and be more effective as you're constructing this resume going forward.
Absolutely. For those of you who are out there saying, wow, we're spending an awful lot of time on step one, probably step one, gathering the tools, gathering the information need to be necessary. This prep step is probably half the battle. But let's jump, let's get ready, let's slide on into the functionality. And this is when you're actually going to get pen and paper and you're going to start to do the physical work of creating that tailored resume. And that's when we do what we like to call the resume crosswalk. Tell us all about it, Lucas.
Sure. So something that is very effective, and I recommend to my candidates, is print out the job description, put it side by side with your resume. We already touched on it. It's very critical to read and understand that job description, but see how that compares. A lot of people will, as we discussed, self-select out, they'll rule themselves out of something, but maybe it's just a matter of you reconstructing an accomplishment that you've done. One of the difficult things I think for veterans that are just getting out, about to get out, have been out for a minute, is when you live in that environment for 4 years to 20 years, that's all you know. And so it's kind of difficult to translate that. But being able to just take what they're looking for and spend that time and serve as your own translator for it. How does what I've done on this ship in the Navy, or within this deployment in the Army, or whatever branch of service you're in, how can I tie that to what these guys are looking for? Because we wear many hats in the military. Former artillery officer, it's not, yes, we went out and shot big guns, but there was a lot of logistics work that I did. There was a lot of personnel management that we, preaching to the choir here, but there's ways that it's going to be very helpful just to take a look at the black and white of what they're looking for. And then that's going to help you start to reframe how you can present what you can bring to the company.
Awesome, Lucas. And I'll tell you, I wouldn't be a good, experienced, seasoned staff officer if I didn't have at least one slide. So here we go. Big fancy graphic coming up. There we go. Help me unpack this. What are we looking at here, Luke?
Sure. So, you're going to have what the client's looking for, or what this company's looking for within this role, and then see how that lines up with what you've already got in your resume. Maybe you've got some stuff that already aligns to that, and start to prioritize that. Hey, they're looking for this, and I've done that. I have that, a robust amount of that experience. Okay, so that's got me at like a 1 and a 1 here. And then as you're going through and you're kind of creating that prioritized list that meshes with what it is that they're looking for, then you can also start to spot some of the things that maybe you don't have there, or maybe that you haven't articulated accurately for that. And that's going to give you the opportunity to go back and maybe do some reworking and make your resume a little bit more strong for their review, and make you more competitive for this role. So, excuse me, taking that, prioritizing it, matching up those numbers within your own resume, and then making sure that the whole point of these resume presentations and getting this interview is getting your foot in the door for the interview. But when a company can look at this and they already see as close to a 99% solution it's just going to grease the skids for you going forward. And if there's anything else you want to add on that, by all means. But
yeah, and you know, when I talk to folks about resumes, one of the first questions I usually ask is, what is the purpose of a resume? And I get kind of different. Well, it's to tell the story about me as a professional. It's to tell the company what I have to offer. It's to tell it, stop, hold, break, click, stand by, to get in the room. That's it. That's the only reason to have a resume. It's to get off the desk, piece of paper, and get in the interview room. That's it. Get yourself in the interview. Give them enough information to convince them that you are worth interviewing. Everything else is extraneous. These employers want to know, can you do the job? Can you generate results? Will you fit into my organizational culture? And if the answer is yes to all those things, or a maybe to all those things, then they're going to want to interview you. And if the answer is a hard yes after the interview, then absolutely you're going to probably get hired. So, and I got to tell you something, Lucas, I love this graphic. It's as simple, it's analog. It is just, it's even an artilleryman can do it. Job description on the left-hand side of the table. Boom. Your resume on the right-hand side of the table. Boom. You got a highlighter, you got a pen. Highlight the key qualifications, key skills, key job responsibilities. Bump it up, make a list, number them. Go to your resume, do the same thing. Look for the correlations. Whatever you're missing, better be prepared to address that somewhere, because the employer is going to notice it's not there.
No, absolutely. And, you know, kind of on within this this portion of getting your resume squared away, I just want to talk on something that I've seen a lot within this role. You know, I think everybody, there's almost like this maybe this well, there is a very huge disconnect of like, okay, here's my resume. Hopefully I can get this discussion going on. There's these, you know, I don't know who it is I'm talking to. There, you start generating the worst case scenarios, and that's not the case. This is just a person who's excited to hear about what you bring to the table. And what I've seen with some clients I've worked with in the past, and you know, we're gonna address some of the things that, you know, maybe if you're not at that 99% version of a left-handed astronaut that these guys are looking for, I have seen when you go in there and communicate, then there's been candidates that have been placed in roles of greater responsibility, greater pay, because they've been able to say, hey, additionally, I bring this to the table, or they elaborate further on that initial getting your foot in the door document that we're talking about. And then on the flip side, I've also had candidates that said, hey, you know, I know you guys are looking for, you know, 10 years of experience working on rolling doors for large warehouses. I don't have that, but I'm willing to learn. You know, I bring 6 years of hands-on mechanical experience, not necessarily on this platform, but I'm pretty sharp. I'm a fast learner. Here's a couple examples of how I've had some accomplishments with that.
Similar performance, different job title, maybe different process, but generating the same outcomes.
Exactly. And so the client's been like, hey, that works for us. You know, let's have another interview, or let's talk about an offer. And they get them into that next career role, and they develop them. And so just to, you know, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but we're developing our ticket to get our foot in the door. But then, and this will, you know, be a conversation later, I'm sure, but that communication, all this time and effort that you're spending into creating this communication in this document, use that to continue to slingshot yourself forward in continuing to paint the picture is always being painted, right? When I was in special forces, I said you're always being evaluated. And so it doesn't stop. You always have to look for work. And I know that's kind of a lot that I'm throwing in with what we're talking about here, but what I mean with that is that within that environment, you have that opportunity where if there is maybe that hurdle that is presenting itself, just be prepared to talk your way through it. You know, we're not trying to make things up. We're not trying to, you know, put you in a tough spot or anything, but just be able to say, you know, hey, I don't know that 100%, but I'm willing to learn, or I do bring the skill set, and here's how it's been done on my side of the house. Here's how it's been done in whatever branch of the military I've been in. And I think that's how we can, you know, I can apply that experience to, you know, help this company or this, you know, maneuver any friction points with this position.
It's about being relevant, right? Like, hey, I don't have the exact experience you're looking for, but I have relevant accomplishments that indicate that I have the capacity to do what it is you're looking for. All right, brother. Now we've hit steps 1 and 2. Let's jump on number 3. Customize your professional summary. That's that handy dandy little paragraph right there at the top of the resume, right below your information, your administrative information, if you want to call it that. How important is it to customize that before you rocket that resume off to that next employer?
I think it's very important. That at the beginning of this conversation, we were talking about a one size fits all approach to resumes. And that's, I think, the most commonly used one size fits all is just a summary. Hey, former insert branch here veteran, enthusiastic about working with teams, has XYZ years of experience in mechanical or electrical, skills, whatever that looks like. But that doesn't, I've experienced with some of the candidates I've had in the past where a client has been like, hey, this is great, but I'm not putting 2 and 2 together here. So taking that time after having researched the job description, conducting your recon, doing all your intel, and saying, hey, company X is looking for this. So that's, I bring that experience. Let me articulate that. This is how I can be value added to your company. So you identify what the company's looking for, and then you're helping the company understand what problem you're going to be able to help them solve.
Absolutely.
And then you market yourself with that. And so when you're able to articulate that, you'll draft that summary and present them, hey, I'm a solution to your problem here, and here's how I can help. And that's first thing they're going to see on your resume. And then that's once they see everything else that falls in under that, your skills, the big accomplishments you've got. Again, this is all just building up that momentum and working, getting us closer to getting that conversation.
I love that. Understanding that when there's a job opening in a company, that's viewed as a problem, right? Somebody's not doing something. There's something that's not being done effectively, efficiently, within budget or on time. So when you draft that, and I love that, be the solution of the problem. Draft your professional summary as if you are describing to that employer why you are the solution to the problem that they're having, and making it relevant. Again, yeah, that one size fits all approach does not work. Okay, rocking and rolling our way down the resume, down to the next section would be the skills section. Again, another one I don't see people even touching from job A to job B to job C. What should they be doing there in that handy dandy skills section?
Yeah, so the skills, as you mentioned, I've seen all manner of formats and types, and sometimes people have their education up towards the top and maybe their certifications, but more often than not, that stuff is listed at the very bottom, the last page, last second or third page. When you're putting your energy towards a very focused type of career that you're interested in pursuing, and they're looking for a certain certification, AutoCAD, some type of IT certification, maybe, any OSHA, Lean Six Sigma, all the, different colored belts that they've got there, put that up there first. Let them see that, that their staff is going to be skimming for that, but you're making it easier for them, and especially yourself, if you just put that front and center right there, so that they're seeing your summary. Okay, this fits with everything. He's going to be value added. He's going to help us solve these problems. Bam. And he's got these different certifications. Perfect. So where the worst problem you're going to have by doing this is trying to figure out when you can coordinate your resume or your interview with them. So helping them see the bottom line up front, like we're all familiar with doing in the military, get that really important stuff put within that skills portion, and help them see the picture that you're trying to paint. And
what I've heard too, tell me if this is the 8 to 10 second rule. They say your average recruiter, sourcer, talent acquisition professional is going to spend 8 to 10 seconds on your resume. And that's roughly the top half of the first page. Is that where they're selling themselves, in that top half of the front page?
100%. Yes. It's, for me on this side of the house, whenever I see that, when I see a good summary, when I see those skills that match up with everything I'm looking at, within that 8 to 10 seconds, then I'll spend maybe another 25 to 30 getting a little bit more into the nitty gritty as far as some of the things that they've accomplished. But exactly right. Like, that's it. If you want to spend the time making a 6-page resume, frankly, you're wasting your time. 1 page, 2 pages at the most. But the meat and potatoes of that's going to catch that attention and help these guys see if you're a go or a no go. is going to be that part right there. The skills, the summary and the skills.
Okay, so we have gathered the tools. We've got our master resume. We've done our intel. We've done our recon. We have gone through the exercise of left, right. We have customized our professional summary so that it sounds like an answer to the problem the employer is having. We've racked and stacked our skills like air assets in the fight, right? We got our most high impact assets coming in hot first and guns free. Now we're moving down the page. We're heading to work experience. 8 to 10 seconds is going to get you about, as you've said, top half of that first page. Hopefully at that point in time, now you've decided as someone who screens resumes, okay, you've captured my attention with your skills, with your professional summary. Now I'm going to spend a little time looking at your work experience. What do we need to do to tailor that work experience? Step 5, for those of you who are keeping track.
Keep it succinct. I am an example of this. When I was first getting out and I was crafting my resume, or even when I was in the process of interviewing, I would treat it like a brief, right? Like I was briefing a commander, and in my mind, because that's the life that I lived for 10 years, I want to give them as much information as possible so that they can make a decision. Hey, this guy has given me a bullet. It's a paragraph, but I feel comfortable. I sleep well at night knowing that I've told them everything, that they'll get a good idea. That's not, they've stopped reading after line 1. So succinct, but effective. And so being able to encapsulate that experience in a good heavy hitting bullet is going to help me, help any other recruiter, help any company save that time. And it's going to emphasize probably a skill that you've listed as far as good communication, that, hey, okay, I can see in the quick bottom line up front here, he or she has done this, this, and this. All right. And then what's their previous experience, and just working your way down with that. So what's important, what's relative, keep the fluff out. That's something that, everybody is accustomed to going through a million PowerPoints and your eyes are starting to glaze over. Same thing with this. Give me a good heavy hitting bullet, 3 to 5 of them that I can say, hey, he's helped the unit save, over $2 million in
numbers,
contractor costs. Exactly.
Gotta have some numbers, right? Quantifiable,
get some numbers. Yeah.
Relevant.
Yep. And that's and it's easy enough just to say a lot with very little, and especially when you can incorporate those quantifiable numbers or elements. That's the kind of stuff that's going to say more for you than you've got to worry about, maybe previously creating a paragraph per bullet for. And then prioritize it, right? If there's something within your career that you've done that was just absolutely amazing, one of 3 to 5 things, put it at the top. Let us see it first. Let these companies see it first and get excited about that, and then see all the other sub bullets beneath it that continue to show, what you bring to the table. But you don't want to, treat it like some of our, preferred TV shows or movies where it's like, okay, we're building up to the big final crescendo. That's, again, this is when you're putting the bottom line up front, or the most impactful accomplishment that you have up front. It's just going to continue to keep that enthusiasm going for getting you set up with that conversation.
Just like an award write-up, just like an OER, just like an NCOER, put the strongest material up front.
Absolutely. So, and then as far as any specific experience that you've got, or maybe any qualifications you're missing, if you've done similar work, and we kind of touched on this previously, or you've had, similar performance outcomes on the military side, translate that and make sure that you include that as well. Because I think one of the, again, using myself as an example, I had the privilege of being a Green Beret with 7 Special Forces Group, and probably not the case for everybody, but I felt pretty confident that I could just step out of the military and be offered a job. I was amazing, but no, I got smacked in the face with reality real quick with that. I had to articulate, I had to translate, I had to say, hey, this is what I've done within this role or these roles. And so I know you guys are looking for XYZ, but here's what I've done on that side. And here's the second and third order effects that's generated. And that's how I can do that for your company too. So after getting kicked around a little bit and realizing how grave of an error that was, making that bold assumption, framing it the way that we've all just discussed, but then especially if there is something similar, include that in there as well. So they can be like, okay, yeah, he was a former whatever within the military, but I can see that experience translate over here, and I can see that value added over here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes absolute sense. And for many people, that's an emotional, personal, ego step, a deliberate move to step away because we become within the military so wedded to our personal identity and our professional identity, and ended up becoming one. And we have to kind of divorce ourselves from it. And it could be a kick in the backside and a blow to the ego. But let's face it. You write a resume that looks like you're applying for a job to be the aide de camp to the JSOC commander, and it's all Ranger Airborne Special Forces, rappelling and jumping out of planes and shooting stuff. That's great. Send it to Soldier of Fortune magazine. Maybe they'll do a cover they'll do a cover article on you. The most whoest guy in the world, but people are not hiring for you to do some rangering. They're hiring for you to be a production controller, a production supervisor, an account manager, a sales representative, something. So get relevant, like you said, and that's that. Get relevant, get impactful, quantifiable bullets. Okay, now you're an old special forces guy. We're talking about targeting, so we got to go F3 EAD. We fixed. Now it's time to finish and exploit. The targeted resume is ready to rock and roll. What can we be doing to put the hot sauce on the MRE, put the icing on the cake here?
Hot sauce on the MRE. I like that one. Finish and exploit this thing. Have a cover letter, right? I know that one is always probably another one of those things where it's like, all right, here's something else I've got to do. But when you go through these interviews, there is ideally you're going to be conveying your interest within the company, and the company is going to be enthusiastic about what it is you bring to the table. Now, something else again that I had a really rough time getting out of the military and getting into the civilian side, but a conversation in greater detail for later. But I didn't convey my enthusiasm for moving along in the process or for joining the team. I didn't send out as many cover letters as perhaps I should have. And that's going to be that additional, hey, this is what I just want to reiterate. Thank you for everything. This is what I'm really enthusiastic about bringing to the company. This is what I, believe is going to be how my skills are going to be value added to you guys. And, making sure that you're, again, not another one size fits all. Craft that to this specific company, this specific position, and follow on with it. I know sometimes the way that a lot of companies within our technological age go now, it might be kind of tough to get some feedback in a more timely manner, but continue that conversation. One of the things that I always stay connected. One of the things that I always recommend people do, because I didn't, when I was interviewing and they'd say, hey, Lucas, appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. We'll provide some feedback and we'll get back to you. And I would just, in my mind, I was like, hey, they know I'm sitting here in my suit. I've taken some time out of my day. I assume they know that I want this job because of those things that I just listed. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Instead of saying, hey, Greg, I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today. I really enjoyed learning some more about this role. I'm really enthusiastic about next steps with this opportunity. Let me know what you need from me, and I look forward to speaking with you again. Tell them point blank, hey, I want this job. And you get to do that.
And I've heard that before. And tell me you haven't been guilty of failing to rehearse the exfil. We get the whole plan, actions on the objectives. Okay. Phase 4, exfil. What are your questions? And then something gets screwed up. Someone gets left behind. An OP doesn't get pulled back in. And they go, Waniewski, how'd you screw that one up? They're like, let me guess, you didn't rehearse the exfil. Finish the task. Optimize your performance. And if we're talking about this resume, right, consider writing your tell me about yourself. And you're going to get to the interview. Hopefully, knock wood, you get the interview. First question, 9 times out of 10, they're going to ask you is, tell me about yourself. You've spent some time figuring out your professional summary. Write your tell me about yourself answer at the same time, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe go use JobScan or SkillSync or something like that. Or maybe find someone who might be a little bit smarter than you, a little bit more honest than your best friend to read your resume and give you some feedback. I want to address, before we get too far into the weeds, Ryan here, and it's perfectly timed question. Ryan asked question for the end, not related to the resume. I'd say Ryan is very related to the resume. Asking about the cover letter. My experience, first thing, Ryan, my advice would be this: write a good cover letter to go with your resume, okay? Because if you've got a fantastic resume, but the cover letter looks like it was written by my 5-year-old son, it just negates. I mean, you're going to give somebody the impression that you paid for your resume, but you did your cover letter yourself, and you're probably going to the bottom of the pile. I mean, have you seen some of these disparities?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The amount of time, everything we've discussed on resumes, you know, I've been at this role within this role for 2 years today. And I'm really passionate about what we do. And I'm enthusiastic about getting uh placing our candidates with meaningful career opportunities. But what I've seen a lot in the past 2 years, and it's not a large percentage of it, but sometimes I want that for them more than they want it for themselves. And so with everything we've spoken about with getting your resume prep and doing the work, doing the heavy lifting, same thing goes with that cover letter as well too. As when you have something that looks like, hey, this person, spent 3 weeks and late nights, making this really well crafted, polished document. And then, like you said, this other one looks like, he gave it to his kid for homework. And not saying that that's what any of you are doing or that it's that extreme, but they're going to see that difference, and that takes away from any of that momentum that you might have been building along the way. So just maybe that's, the same effort that you're putting in towards doing this resume, do the same thing with a cover letter and make sure that you're maneuvering those to the different types of roles along the way as well, because that's one of those things that, while it might not to us as candidates, as people seeking jobs, seem like a necessary thing, in some companies, maybe they don't put as much stock into it, but
You know,
they're going to
I think
appreciate.
I think so many job seekers, so many job seekers hear, oh, you don't need a cover letter, don't worry about cover letter, blah, blah, blah. They just don't do one. So that when, as a hiring manager in a previous role, when I got a cover letter, I was like, oh, well, here's somebody who's going about, he's putting in the extra effort. And so that would tilt my opinion of that individual in favor of the person that put in the extra effort. Now, quick question here from Eric, and I love this. Should the targeted resume repeat the same information as the LinkedIn profile, and should the LinkedIn profile be more in line with the master? Lucas, your thoughts?
For me personally, with regard to LinkedIn, and if anybody on here has a chance to look at mine, I just have what my previous job title was, the years that I held that role, and then I spend a lot of the time. Everything else, all the meat and potatoes, goes in the resume. That's just Lucas Waniewski, because to me, at the time when I was searching for some of these jobs, it doesn't. I kind of want to keep. I want to stay a little mysterious, and so if there's something that people are going to look at my LinkedIn profile, see some of my accomplishments, it's just a lot of redundant information. But if you are on the side of the fence that wants to mirror that as well as you can, I would say the LinkedIn profile, probably more so of like a summary. You want to have your master resume be let's see, should the target resume repeat the same? Yeah. No, if you're going to choose between one of those two, then make your LinkedIn profile follow the master resume versus the other way around. But
Yeah,
again,
I got to agree with you on that one, Lucas. I see your targeted resume as a document that you're using to market yourself to that employer, whereas your LinkedIn profile is how you are marketing yourself to the entire workforce. You've got lots of room to play with. You've got lots of places to add media and things like that, which I like. And I got one last question before we wrap the show up, and I got to address this one, Zach. I've seen so many resumes where the saved file is named document or resume or even named for a specific job. How important is it to look at what you named the resume prior to sending? Well, let me give you a piece of advice. If you're applying for a job at Pepsi, don't send them a resume that says Waniewski resume _ Coca-Cola _ docx. That one
yeah,
will capture somebody's attention.
no, absolutely. And that's let's see, where the file save document or resume. So something, and again, this is Lucas Waniewski, and this is how I present candidates to certain jobs. I know if you're pursuing maybe a federal job or something outside of what our organization does, you'll have to name it with something specific. But when you think of the automation that some of these companies are maybe using, I think it's a safe bet to go with, especially with my last name being as unique as it is, I'll do a last name, first name, resume. Waniewski
Yep.
Lucas
Keep
resume.
it simple, right?
Keep it simple. That's
I'd
right.
say whatever you save it as, if there's anything I would look for, is to make sure that the HTML for your email address and your LinkedIn URL in the document is clickable.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever format you have that in. Well, I'll tell you what, Lucas, I think we could go on for another 40 minutes or so, but they pay me to do other stuff too. So I'm going to have to get after that. Listen, it's been a great show. We really unpacked this. 5 steps to a tailored resume. All right. We're looking forward to taking this same material and hopefully putting together an article for our very own Search and Employ magazine here within the next couple of months. I might even, if I'm feeling generous, include you in on the byline. How's that sound, Lucas?
Hey, that sounds good to me, man. I appreciate it, Lucas.
All right.
Lucas squared. But yeah, no, hey, thanks for having me today. And just to, the people that are watching, there's a robust capability that Recruit Military brings to the table for our veterans, but especially when it comes to, this resume stuff. Lucas and I both understand how daunting of a process it is. This advice, this guidance doesn't need to, end at this video. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, I'll take a look at something, anything that's going to help you feel more confident going into that next job, post-military or a couple years after post-military, whatever it is, reach out to me. And we don't want to leave you hanging. We don't want there to be any other questions. So I just want to emphasize, Lucas, I appreciate you giving me the time. Reach out. Let us help you out here.
Awesome. Thanks, brother. I appreciate you being on the show. And for all you out there who's still with us, if you haven't already done so, do yourself a solid and register on www.recruitmilitary.com for access to over 16,000 employers, 400,000 job opportunities around the world and around the corner. Folks, that about wraps it up for us today. Tune in on May 10th when Recruit Military Live will be featuring Gabby Pettigrew. Resources for mill spouses will be the topic of the day. Don't miss it. This has been Lucas Connolly for Recruit Military Live. Until next time, good luck and Godspeed.